Welcome to Whole Latte Love Coffee Seminars. I'm Zach.
I'm John. I've been doing the coffee thing for about 15 years. Zach, you've been doing this, what, 10 years or so?
Yeah, it almost doesn't look like it, but I have been pouring quite a lot of latte art in my days, over a decade. Definitely been in some competitions. Maybe you'll see a seahorse at the end of this. Typically, I'm able to prove myself, but we'll get there.
I'd be excited to see it. So we're going to be unlocking the secrets of pouring excellent latte art today. Am I going to be able to pour an amazing seahorse like that after today's seminar?
You know what? Maybe, because even I mess up sometimes. So it is kind of a risk, you know, when you start pouring some drawing art and incorporating a lot of the tools that we're going to be teaching today. So a lot can go wrong. I'm pretty experienced with it, but it happens. So
Absolutely. Yeah, so today we're going to go over a whole bunch of things about how to make great latte art, starting with your equipment needs. Then we're going to move into the stages of pouring, then into positioning your body to get a good pour, pitfalls, and then finally different pour types, which to me is one of the most exciting parts. You know, rosettas, hearts, even seahorses.
even seahorses. So quite a bit to go through today. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Kind of start off with the equipment that you need to kind of follow along with us today, which I highly recommend. If you have your pitcher, you have some cups, you have some water, I hope, at home, and follow along with what we're kind of doing today, because we'll be doing a lot of practicing and some pouring as well. So first up, you kind of need a machine of some sort.
I think you need an espresso machine to start off with, right?
Yeah, so something that's going to produce an adequate amount of pressure. The more pressure, the better it is for microfoam, so keep that in mind. So if you do want to practice at a lower pressure, it might give you a little bit more time, but we're definitely shooting for something pretty high pressured.
Absolutely.
Then we're also going to need a pitcher today. So we have quite a few different kinds today. So we have some sharper pitchers, we have some rounded spouts as well. A lot of these matter dependent on what kind of art that you're going to be doing today. So with a sharper edge, you can start getting into those drawing arts like I just used with one of our Barista pitchers or one of our nasty jugs. I can start, doing those really fine line rosettas and get into some drawing art, which is what I call it.
Now that's a lot easier with more of a fine point pitcher. Do I understand that correctly?
Correct. Yeah, you can really get in those fine details, which we'll kind of show you how a little bit later too.
Cool.
Then we also have some rounded tips as well. So you can find that from like these big belly sort of pitchers here. And these are going to be great for tulips. You can stack out a lot of art at once. So when I say art, it's kind of like painting a picture. So you can stack a lot of foam out, that microfoam.
Now, you and I like to describe this the same way. The tip of your steam pitcher, I sort of look at that like your pen, and you can just draw what you want to start seeing. You like to call it the paintbrush, and you can just draw what you want to see with the tip of your steam pitcher. Is that right?
Exactly, and it's going to kind of bleed out the closer you get too. So definitely keep in mind your distance of that spout proximity, which is what we'll touch in later as well. So we also need to look at our cups as well. So our cups are a large importance because of how the bottom is shaped as well. So we're typically looking for a large frame, so a large canvas for that pen, and then also a rounded bottom here as well. And that'll kind of help the crema stabilize and fill up your cup smoothly as you're pouring.
Now, if I have just a regular coffee mug, about yay high, and it's a cylinder, flat bottom, that's going to be a lot more difficult to do latte art and that type of thing. Is that right?
Oh yeah, so you're going to have to integrate a lot more milk before you can start pouring. Now, there are ways around this, and that mainly has to do with pitcher sizes as well. So let's go ahead and continue on here, and let's talk about what kind of paint or pen that we're also using as well.
By paint, do you mean milk?
By paint, I mean milk.
I love that.
Don't actually use paint out there. Someone might try it.
Please don't.
Please
Yes.
don't.
Thank you for that clarification,
It would
Zach.
be awful. Yeah. So you can use food dyes. Now that is one way that you can use paint.
Of course.
In order to pour some latte art, which you might see out there. But we're talking about milk.
Well, what kind of milk is best for latte art?
So I like using whole milk. So there's plenty of what we call surfactants inside whole milk, as well as fat and protein. Now, surfactants is a term that we're going to use quite a bit during latte art, just because this is going to be the binding glue for these fat globules and proteins to kind of bind together in a way that will create microfoam. So all that air that you're infusing inside your pitcher, inside your milk, you can then glue it together so it'll actually come out pretty well,
Cool.
and layer on top of your espresso.
Now, to me, it sounds like those fats kind of wrap around the bubbles that you've created by frothing, and the more surfactants you have in there, you're not going to get those bubbles just popping right away.
Exactly, so they're not going to diffuse as much. So you might find that actually within other milks, like skim milk is a huge one where that's going to diffuse really fast. Sure, you can build up a lot of foam pretty quick, but it's not the right kind of foam for latte art. So if you're out there and you're struggling with skim milk, that could be one of the issues, is that lack of surfactants.
Right.
So with that, you might be struggling also with alternative milks.
Now, some of those do have surfactants in them, right? That's why you want to buy like a barista grade oat milk or almond milk or something like that, or as long as it says barista approved or barista grade, then you might be in good shape with that
Exactly.
brand, right?
Those will make you a better barista because it says it right on the box. So with that, it's just incorporating more of that glue, more of that surfactants. And this, it's typically like a sunflower oil, some oil of some sort that they're kind of adding that fat, that surfactants back in there to really create that nice sheen texture. So if you're having troubles, maybe try that barista grade. Now there's other ways that you can start combining all these different milks as well to create like the perfect milk for you. And there's even freeze distillation, which I recommend looking up later on. That's a really fun experiment that you can do at home where you're really utilizing all these fat globules and you're making them really small and compact so you can make great latte art.
I've never done that. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we should go live and do that next time.
Nice.
But the thing is, it takes 14 hours. So that would be a really long live, but maybe we'll do some work ahead of time and get that done for you. All right, so after we have our milk, we kind of need to get into our pour now. So with our pour, you know what? Let's go ahead and take up one of our videos on screen.
Ooh, we have a video.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do our Rosetta video.
Nice.
So we're going to go ahead and go into the stages of the pour. So first, you're seeing that we are integrating our milk. So we do this about 4 inches above our actual canvas. And then after we integrate that milk by kind of, creating a uniform color and texture with that crema, we can then set our base.
Now the base is the first thing that comes out as far as your actual ink goes, right?
Correct, yeah. So that is that first hint of white that you see. And this is going to create a nice stable structure for you to then pour your latte art in. And this base can be created in a couple different ways. You can either pour a lot of milk on the back side where it's a little bit more shallow, where we started kind of our pour on this pour.
I see.
Yep. And that one, you can actually pour high to create kind of like a suction. All of your art will kind of start sucking towards the back of your cup.
Cool.
That one's a little difficult to set your base. What I usually recommend is a little bit of a push-off.
Okay, what's that? What do you mean by push-off?
So what you'll do is when you start seeing a little bit of that white, you're going to start pushing that white to the back of your cup. Now this might happen at different times inside your pour depending on what milk pitcher that you have as well.
Okay.
But setting that base is going to be crucial for a lot of different kind of latte art that you're going to do. So practicing a little bit of a push, which we'll show you a little bit shortly, pretty soon.
Cool.
Eventually.
Eventually, we're gonna get to the action.
We'll get to some action. Thanks for hanging in there. You'll be able to then pour art. So after you set that base, keep in mind of what you're going to do beforehand. That's going to be key because you need to integrate to different levels. A lot of latte art, you actually pour to about 3/4 of the cup. And then you can start incorporating your art.
Meaning before your image actually starts showing up, you want to fill it up about 3/4. That's a general rule of thumb for a lot of different designs.
Yes, exactly. So that's our general rule of thumb with most designs.
Okay.
And then if you want to start stacking things and incorporate more and more latte art, you need more time. So you can start getting to that faster and faster depending on what pitcher size that you have as well. So after you lay down your art, and we're kind of slowly painting that onto our canvas, you then need to finish as well. So if we take it back to the video one more time, you'll be able to see our finish on this one. So again, we're first starting with a high pour, creating a deep end by tilting our cup.
Creating a much deeper well to pour into, right, by tilting the cup.
Exactly. That'll create a nice, even canvas for us to pour in.
And here's our base.
And then here's our rosetta as our art.
Very nice. And now here, it sounds like you finish by lifting the jug up a little bit so that that milk falls right between the pour. It doesn't show up on top of your design. Instead, it cuts it. Is that kind of the general idea here?
Yeah, so as you're going higher with that spout proximity, you're gonna be able to cut through your canvas. So those are lines that aren't gonna show, but they might be crucial to finishing your latte art. So with that rosetta, if I didn't do that, it would just look like a whole bunch of lines, really, what it looks like so far. We wouldn't be able to strike off and finish.
Now, in general, the closer your pitcher is to the coffee or to your design, really, that's going to impact whether or not that milk shows up on top of your design or whether it cuts right through, right?
Correct, yeah. So spout proximity is huge. But also, your body positioning, before we even get there, will also tell a lot of that. So before we even can look at where our spout is, we have to kind of look at ourselves. Look deepward, inward towards yourself. And this is a great time to kind of practice with your own pitcher as well.
I'm going to practice along with you, okay, Zach?
All right, let's do it.
All right.
So, when you position your body, it's good to get into a nice habit. So we can kind of do this together.
All right.
All right, so stand up firm, strong.
This is Zach and John's workout.
Yeah, you have to work on your body posture as well, which I really need to do. So latte art helps me with this. So take control of both your cup and your pitcher. And you're going to want to start at a slight tilt. We're creating that deep end. And take control of your pitcher. And we're wanting to kind of keep your shoulders in and pouring a little bit closer to yourself. So you're creating a little bit of bend inside your shoulder. Yep, so you're keeping it nice and close. And then kind of practice a little bit of a pour. So integrating. You don't have to know what to do with your pitcher quite yet. Practice integrating. And then what you can do in order to stabilize your cup, because if this cup stayed at the same angle the whole entire time, my shoes would be such a mess. So in order to practice this, because it's kind of a lot to focus on at first, I like to tilt my body as I'm actually pouring. And this will help me not think about how much I need to stabilize my cup. So it kind of becomes a muscle memory. So if you kind of get this rigid position in your head and start practicing at the get-go, you'll have the best results.
So let me try one. So I would have it tilted, and I'm doing this, and then sort of
obliques. Obliques.
Yep,
there we go.
Moving my body.
Yeah.
So that now my cup is level, so it's not going to pour a latte or cappuccino right onto the floor.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So if you need a gym exercise for this, you can start taking a weight inside your hand and do some obliques, and that'll really help you with your latte art. So that's what I do.
It is a workout class.
Yeah, it's the only workout that I do in the gym. So, so after you practice that, we also kind of need to focus on our hand positioning as well. So a lot of what actually creates this art as we're pouring out has to do a lot with your elbow as well. So really focus on where your elbows are as you are pouring, because as soon as you lift this elbow, a lot of that foam is going to start falling out, and it might blop out too. So if you're pretty aggressive with this elbow, you're relying on it, that could mess you up.
Now, my experience is the faster you pour, that's when you're going to see your design begin to come out. Is that kind of the idea? So if you raise your elbow, that's when you're going to see more milk kind of like blobbing out.
Exactly. So it will blob out like that because of the way it's kind of like positioned. All of your microfoam's positioned inside the back of your pitcher. So you can pour latte art without speed pouring as well. So there's a different technique to that, and that has to do more with the size of your pitcher. But let's focus first on our hand position. So typically I like to pinch these a little bit at the top and kind of let it be able to wiggle back and forth. Now this is a great technique to be able to dial in as you start getting to rosettas and things that you want to start making leaves on. You just want it to kind of dangle inside your hand. Now you can practice this as well with some water. And you can really focus on that steady stream. And if you notice, as I roll it, I don't need to control it both ways because it will start rolling back and forth on its own.
It really does not need that much movement from you to get the liquid to move back and forth.
Exactly. So it just needs that little bit of a pinch, and kind of get used to rolling the water inside your pitcher as well, and as it comes out. Now, this will help you get a little bit more refined lines as well over time. Because if you're using your whole entire arm, there's no control in that whatsoever. So it'll be a little difficult.
Yeah.
So with that, practice with water and your cup. Get used to how it fills up. Get used to that body positioning. And maybe, even go at a metronome when you're starting to get into more of that Rosetta sort of form. So you can really get into nice symmetrical lines.
So instead of doing this back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, you can set a metronome and just kind of go back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth.
Yeah, or even just a back and a back and a back, because it's going to already roll the other way for you. So get used to how your milk is coming out of your specific pitcher, and that will teach you a lot about how your pitcher works before you even get there. Try water. So we also need to focus on the flow at this point too. So you were saying if we're pouring really fast, that means you're going to get to your latte art faster, but you also might be pouring out a lot of that microfoam as well.
Yeah, and this is something that I run into when I'm training baristas as well. There's so much to pay attention to all at the same time. Where your cup is, making sure that you're not spilling everywhere, but also at the same time, continuing to pour and wiggle at the same time. You've got to keep the velocity of milk coming out of the pitcher while straightening your cup out, and that ends up being a lot of the challenge. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
One of those things is actually pouring with a little bit of not too much velocity and controlling your speed and flow of the milk coming out, right?
So a great way to actually look at your flow as it's happening is actually look at the thickness of your pour. So the thickness of your pour, you want it to be about like a Sharpie or a pencil's width around. So look at your thickness instead of, okay, I'm filling up this fast, it's happening really fast. At least create enough of a stable base and then focus on a pencil. So turning that pen into a pencil at this point.
Cool, interesting.
So focus on your thickness when you're looking at your flow. You do want it to be steady. You want it to be constant, or else all that microfoam is gonna blob in the back of your pitcher. And that's when it's going to be really difficult to work it out at that point. So
interesting. Okay.
Working out your foam is basically working it to the side and up to the top. So you also don't want to be smacking your pitcher as much, or else it might become blobby.
Yeah.
So many things can go wrong at this point. Maybe we'll try that a little bit later.
Sounds fun.
So at this point, are there any questions out there? I know we kind of ran through a lot without going through too many exciting things. We're still trying to get into our position so we can start pouring. So it looks like we do have one question here.
Yeah, Francisco says, what kind of espresso machine are you using?
Yeah, that's a great question. So today we have the Profitec Drive. So this does have a little bit higher pressure. I do have 2 steam holes on our spout, so I'm a little bit central. If you didn't see already our previous seminar leading up to this, about how your steam holes matter and the pressure matters, definitely check that one out as well. We also use this drive on that one as well. I also have a Gaja Classic over here that I might show, how it's possible to create a little latte art a little bit later.
Even on a Gaja Classic, it can be done.
Even on a Gaja Classic, as long as you stick to correct structure. So that'll be a fun one.
Cool. Sounds fun.
All right, so
nice.
Let's really dive into that spout proximity, because there's a couple other things that we need to look at, and then we can start pouring.
Cool, sounds good.
When you're trying to pick what kind of pour you want to do, you also want to look at the size of your pitcher. And this matters because your spout proximity, you can get into your cup a lot faster without pouring out too much of your milk if you have a larger pitcher. Now you might have better luck steaming your milk and infusing a lot of that pressure with a smaller pitcher. So what I utilize is actually milk sharing. Maybe I'll pick one of these smaller pitchers to really infuse a lot of that air into, and then I'll transfer to a larger pitcher. This creates a great texture, first off, and then it also enables me to only integrate for a little bit and then start setting that base and getting straight into art.
I was wondering if you were going to bring up milk sharing or sharing between two different pitchers, because that can really help just the act of pouring from one pitcher to another can really help some of the milk texture as well, right?
Exactly, but it will fall quickly after that. So sometimes I'll even pre-warm up my other transfer pitcher as well. You can just steam it off really fast and you'll have better luck that way.
Cool.
So spout proximity is huge.
Now, the higher that you pour, the less it's going to affect the actual drawing. And that's kind of what we were getting into before. When you pour really high, that's when the milk is not going to float on top, so you can actually see it. It's going to dip right below the crema. So.
In fact, let's go ahead and try a little bit of shots, or try pulling some shots. Not trying shots here. It's still way too early for that. Let's go ahead and start pulling some shots. We're going to start throwing some art. Here, I'm just going to do a basic wrap so I can kind of show a couple different techniques and how to actually transfer into a different pitcher without completely ruining your milk, because it can happen as well. It's detrimental.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and use one of my not neutral cups, because this one I kind of want to wrap it up a little bit. So I'll create some nice bases, I'll pause occasionally, and then we'll kind of go through a little bit later on what kind of art and placement pours that I used in order to do so.
Now you want to wrap it up a little bit. I'm interested in what you mean.
Yeah, so wrapping, after I create that base, if I keep pouring into that base, it'll naturally kind of wrap around my actual cup.
Some of my favorite pours look like that.
Oh yeah, if you can start wrapping your pours,
oh yeah,
that's when you'll win all the contests. It's not seahorses that usually win, it's usually those nice, even wraps.
What's your favorite cup today, Zach?
All right, so I'm gonna use this not neutral.
Nice.
It'll be my favorite cup today.
That's your favorite cup today. Yeah.
We'll just say. So I'm gonna also use one of these big bellies that I'm gonna utilize because of the way that it traps a lot of that air inside there. It does a great job at creating microfoam. Cool. And then after that, maybe I'll pour from a larger pitcher, like this large nasty jug, and just see what happens there. So
awesome.
Actually, maybe even this stainless steel one. It's a hard choice here because there's two different tips, and that's the only difference.
I love both of those for latte art, but for two different reasons. You know, one for those much thicker pours, yeah, one for those more precision, tinier lines.
Exactly,
So,
yeah. I don't want as much precision as I want to start wrapping, so maybe I'll create a huge base with this spout.
Cool, sounds good.
All right. So I'll go ahead, stick to my nice pre-purges. I'm ready for shots.
Let's hit it. I'm gonna pre-infuse a little bit here. I'll give it like 5 seconds.
I'll start my milk at the same time.
All right.
Now it's very important to start your milk at the same time, or as similar of a time as possible, because you don't want that foam to fall.
Right.
Start kind of off-gassing, losing a lot of that air.
Now you're stopping your temperature just about when it gets too hot to touch, right?
Yeah, and I'll stop completely when it is too hot to touch. Right about there. All right. Every single time, cleaning off my wand.
Very important.
With our sweet little action shots. And you can see that I have a nice thick crema as my base, and that's what we kind of want. You also want to stir it around a little bit because it can be a little too thick, and that's another thing that can cause a lot of blotchiness. So I do work my milk a little bit. I'll steam off.
Now I have a
pitcher.
tendency of spinning my crema, spinning my espresso, so that that crema doesn't sort of harden and sort of create impenetrable islands of crema.
Yeah, which might happen because I already took too long. So let's see if I can actually
That's why it's important to keep them both swirling, both the milk and the espresso.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with a nice high pour.
Yeah, show me what you got.
And I'll stop right there.
You're not nervous, are you?
Nope, not at all.
There's our base. And now we're beginning the design. It's a lovely looking tulip.
Look at that tulip. Nice little base, but it's not very symmetrical. And you know I could probably blame that on? I can blame that on you, John.
I was going to say, can you blame that on me, please?
Yes. So that actually had to do more with my body positioning. I was trying to look good for the camera. So that made my art not look good. So had to change up some things last second. So if you don't keep that very symmetrical to yourself, your art won't be symmetrical either. As you can see, I kind of lost part of my base there when I lifted off and I kind of pushed that first part. It kind of went off to the side a little bit because I was awkwardly positioned over here.
So that body position is actually very important even with when it comes to symmetry in your latte art pour, all those kinds of things.
Exactly. So if you're not becoming a very symmetrical latte artist, look at kind of, again, inward towards yourself and make sure you are center with your cup. And you're also kind of holding your cup in a proper way as well. Looking at where your handle is will create symmetry as well. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and get into some questions now that I've messed up plenty of art today.
I will. I'm messing up some art right behind you. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Is it possible to make latte art with low-fat milk? And how do you control the amount of air you inject? Both very good questions. You want to take that one, Zach?
Yeah. So it is possible to create foam, but just not the correct amount of foam. Basically, what we're relying on are these fat globules. So without those fat globules, it's hard for any of that air to bond to anything. And it will bond to kind of anything and everything, but without that fat, it won't create structure. So it'll kind of off-gas very quickly. You'll lose your foam really quickly. Although it is possible, you'll see it in your cup kind of start dissipating.
Right, yeah, it absolutely can be done. It's kind of over quick. So as soon as you finish steaming, you got to get that pour going right away. And even then, you might see some of those bubbles on top start to dissipate a little bit quicker than usual. The short answer is yes, it's absolutely possible with low-fat milk. Now, how do you control the amount of air that you inject?
All right, so if you didn't look at our last seminar, we went into a pretty wide, a lot of detail. That's what I'm trying to say. We went into a lot of detail on how to incorporate this air. It tends to be at the front end of your milk steaming time. And you want to do that until it's about too warm to the touch, or about warm to the touch. It's 98 degrees. After that, you can't actually infuse any of this air into your milk, so you want to focus more on your whirlpool. So if you heard those chirps as I was frothing milk right now,
that little tss, tss, tss.
It kind of sounds like tearing paper. So that's what we're doing to infuse air into our milk. Now, the more pressure you have, the more we're infusing it to the whole body of milk. And that's also why I like those big belly pitchers as well. It kind of traps a lot of that air towards the bottom and really starts incorporating it.
It's got a lot of room for that whirlpool that you were talking about, right? So instead of this being your only spinning area, you got a lot more area down here with this kind of pitcher, these bell pitchers, to get that milk spinning in a whirlpool. Very important.
Yep. Good big bellies.
Good question.
All right.
Does the velocity of pour increase as art is formed?
So this also depends on the size of your pitcher. So
Interesting.
The velocity will change dependent on the size of your pitcher and the way it's pouring out. So if you can see, let's take a pretty small pitcher here.
Yeah,
let's take this ECM and let's go ahead and try to pour it into a cup. Now, in order to create the base and even start getting my spout into my cup, I hardly can even make an angle with this pitcher.
It just starts coming out right away.
It just starts coming out right away. So I have to wait all the way until, right now, until I actually have a spout proximity close enough to start doing my art. Now, if I'm in a larger pitcher, like this big old Barista, Now with this one, look how far into the foam and actual spout proximity I can get.
Before anything even starts coming out.
Yeah, so I can get almost like sideways, and then I can start pouring.
Yeah.
So I can start my art right away with these larger pitchers. So the velocity will also change in this as well. So the faster that you're pouring, you'll start integrating more of your milk, and then it also changes the thinness and thickness of your lines as well. So you need all of that sort of control in order to get into your art either sooner or later. It's a really hard summary to go through. It's really kind of a practice as doing. You'll see the difference between using a large pitcher and a small pitcher and your control over velocity and that line thickness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So Naomi asks, how do you get the latte art to go wide? My art tends to be small. Naomi, mine sometimes is too. I have a difficult time getting my art all around the cup instead of just in, like maybe like a sliver of the cup or down the middle. Zach, what's the trick here?
Yeah, well, you kind of have to think of like pebbles. You're throwing pebbles into a pond. So you're focusing on this whipple, or the what would that be called?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. It's
that
the
wave.
flow.
Yeah, it's the flow. It's the wave inside the pond, and you're hoping that your art will kind of build up.
Go with that flow?
Yeah, it'll go with that flow and build up into it, because we are starting, as long as you have a pretty round base, a really small canvas. And as you increase your flow and fill up your cup, your canvas is slowly expanding. So that art is also slowly expanding. So that's why the base is super important. So if we start about 3/4 of the way back inside your cup as well, so a little bit, maybe even towards the center, even though you want that on the other side, so you can start your pour here in order to be on the other side. Does that make sense to you, John?
That makes sense.
Am I describing this well enough?
Yeah. Oh no, it makes complete sense to me.
So you're anticipating where those lines are going to be. So it's not going to be a placement pour. A placement pour is going to be poured up towards the top. Where you're pouring it is where it's going to be. It's going to be more of like an anticipatory sort of.
You have to kind of anticipate that it's going to go with the flow, so to speak.
Exactly. Go with the flow. That'll create kind of that expansion, push-offs, and all that fun stuff.
Cool. Want to get into some pitfalls?
You know what? Let's do it.
I guess we have to. They happen a lot. They happen to me. That's why I come to you for latte art help,
Exactly. So there's a couple things. A lot of it has to do with that spout proximity. So if you're pouring too high, you're going to be erasing your art. And you can erase your art by pouring too high as well.
I've done it.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to do.
We call it sinking them.
Yep. Yeah, so you can sink your art that way, which is really fun. You can start experimenting with that. So if you mess up right away, kind of go to a high pour and starts plunging in your canvas pretty far. So that's one of our largest pitfalls that we really see. Then also the velocity of what you're pouring at too.
Okay.
So if you're pouring too fast, you're not going to have any time to really create art. And also, everything's just going to come out in a one big old blob.
You know what else I see sometimes? Pouring too slow.
Yes, pouring too slow. Yep. So that'll start stacking up and blobbing as well.
Right, yeah. Or you end up holding on to all of your microfoam until the very end, and then it all comes out all at once.
Yep, exactly. So you also want to be starting from that deep end and also distilling your crema as well. And if you don't, that'll also kind of create all these little paths inside your cup as well.
What do you mean by distilling your crema?
So that little swirl that I do, let's pull up a video here. Maybe one of a heart.
There you go.
Lots of videos here. If you can see, I'm kind of slowly swirling my espresso and also working my milk all the way up until my pour. Of course, I'm over-exaggerating everything.
I see that sink that you just did right there.
And I'm also sinking things. So things that I don't want on my cup, I can kind of aim at it and sink it.
That's
and then
cool.
As soon as I want to pour, I'm getting in close.
I see that.
And here I'm also pushing. You can see I'm about 3/4 of the way back, and I just did a little push. I never even moved the tip of my pitcher. I just let that velocity, that pencil-sized velocity, move my canvas and also move out and push that art onto my canvas.
Cool. So that's a classic go with the flow right there.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So the faster you pour, you can push more.
Gotcha. You know what? That's the rule of thumb right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the faster I suppose that affects the flow at which your art is coming out at, helping back to I think it was Naomi's question. Sort of push the design throughout the entire cup, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you have to be very controlled with that. If you do pause in between things, it can become very difficult.
Gotcha.
So let's go ahead and go into what types of pours that you can actually do then.
Aha, yes.
So this is where everything's going to be pretty fun now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's go ahead and start getting into placement pours. So
What's a placement pour?
placement pours is if we're kind of distilling and integrating all of our milk, and we want to do something as it's seen on the top. And like as we're drawing it is the way it will be. So in order to do that, we need to integrate a lot of foam to create what will be our canvas, and then just lay out our foam right on top of our canvas. Now that's different than predicting what's going to happen, kind of using flow and velocity in order to build up things and wrap up things. So common things like this are that heart that we just showed, and also the rosetta that we just showed. Those are both kind of placement art. Rosetta, you can, anticipate more of that base, but really you're just kind of placing it there as you're pouring.
Sure, and you can do placement pours kind of near the end as well. I'm just going to add a little heart right there.
And in fact, everything about the seahorse that I just did is all a placement pour as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Which maybe I'll redeem myself. We'll see. So after placement pours, we also have that multi-pour. So this is where things can become very difficult as well. So with multi-pours, we're often lifting up and then stacking as well. So we actually have a video of us stacking a little bit here, kind of like what we showed previously as well. So this one, you'll anticipate what's going to happen. We're still starting off with that high pour, but we're coming into our art a little bit sooner. So it's about halfway or so instead of that three-quarter.
Yeah. Yep.
It's still starting in that three-quarter back, starting that base.
I saw that push.
And as you can see, I'm just placing the tip and focused on the fact that the velocity is placing my art.
Now, it's the velocity of which you're pouring and not necessarily the velocity at which you're pushing, right?
Correct. So the velocity of which I'm pouring. So I'm not very much pushing. It's maybe a couple centimeters that I'm actually really pushing
Maybe less, yeah.
Yeah, but you can almost do these in place, and maybe that's a fun exercise too, is that you can start wrapping around these. If you start pouring in the same place over and over again, you can actually create more and more of a wrap, which maybe we can experiment right now.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we'll go head versus head, head on head. What is that?
Head to head?
Head to head. On
Are we
who
gonna have
can
our own
actually
mini
wrap more?
Well, I'm not a very good rapper, but let's see what we got here.
I'm clearly not good enough with words to be a rapper. So. All right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll get us some espresso going.
Perfect. And I'll start my wrap up first. So I'm going to go with something pretty wide spouted, I would say. Maybe even this ECM pitcher over here. I actually haven't used this one before, but it has a fantastic shape to it that I feel like would be great for throwing down some wraps.
Can you tell me what kind of cup you would choose? I see we have cappuccino-sized cups and latte cups here.
All right.
With that kind of a pitcher.
So I do want something with a large canvas so I can expand and really wrap a lot of things inside of it. But I also want like that smooth bottom, but a shorter cup. So one of these rocket cups looks perfect to me. I know we're not using anything rocket today, but still a great machine and some great cups as well. So as you can see, it's pretty short, very round, and huge canvas. So hopefully I'll be able to wrap some good things in here.
All right, my favorite rapper, let's go.
All right. Who is your favorite rapper?
You're not my favorite rapper. I'm a Biggie fan myself.
A Biggie fan?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Everyone in the comments, let us know your favorite rapper.
No, today you're gonna be my favorite because you're actually much better at
Stacking
some of
and
the
rapping?
stacking, wrapping. I mean, my thing, my thing. It's always been rosettas. That's been, I'm sort of a one-trick pony, so to speak.
So maybe it should be my stack versus John's Rosetta. So let us know in the comments if that's what you want, or if you want to call out what John's art should be.
Oh man, I'm not the guy for that. I'm a Rosetta guy through and through.
Okay, maybe we should just call out what I should do on the Gaja Classic then.
Ooh, there you go. That sounds fun. Now I have gotten excellent latte art even on that Gaja Classic. Much lower pressure.
Much lower
on that
pressure.
machine.
Yep.
But that, as long as I'm really getting a good whirlpool, that's the main thing that kind of matters, because I can actually incorporate the air into the rest of the milk just by having a good whirlpool.
And as you can see, we also aren't caring too much about what these shots look or taste like. We're just going for a really dark, thick base because that's what's going to give us a lot of the definition and the contrast of like how those lines will actually show. So we purposely kind of went a little fine for today's seminar. So don't judge us based off of dial-in reasons alone. This was very purposeful for today.
Yeah, the way a shot tastes and doing latte art, those are kind of two totally different categories.
So as you can see, I'm kind of pouring out, so I have a similar amount of milk as possible to finish off my pour. I'm also working up until my pour. All right.
All right, show me what you got, Zach.
So I'm just going to create a little bit of a base. And
look at all those tiers. I max out at like 6 on my tulips.
all right,
All right.
there's a little bit of a wrap.
There's plenty of wrap.
All right,
Look at that. Well done, sir.
little something.
Yeah. Mind if I...
Okay enough.
Now, I mean, it is good to remember here that just because you have a nice looking drink, that's not necessarily the same thing as a nice tasting drink.
Yes. So as you can see here, all of these have that really dark contrast, and it's very specific for latte art that we are doing that. So if you are having issues of what we call washing out, where your background almost looks like the art that you're laying on top, then maybe start with like a dark roast that you're specifically doing for latte art, practicing with latte art, and then also pulling more towards like a ristretto. Because if you think of creating less of a base that you need, you can integrate your milk just a little bit and get into your pour a lot faster. So if I do want to start wrapping even faster, not using my words, then I would suggest pulling a nice dark ristretto for a little bit longer. Of course, drinking it afterwards might not be the best idea. Again, this is just for practicing purposes.
Absolutely, and I really don't mind a nice ristretto for latte art purposes as well. So.
Yeah, ristretto can be great. So if you can dial in a ristretto, it's great for latte art. It gives you plenty of time.
I'm gonna put some stuff in your court.
Oh, okay.
Can you choose my pitcher and dose my milk for me?
So me do the work is what John's saying.
Can you do the work for me, Zach?
It's a good thing I'm his best friend. So declared right now.
Yeah.
All right, you're gonna do fellow.
Okay, sounds good.
And I think you know this one. I think you know this pitcher.
I mostly know this pitcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's nice about fellow, as we talked about previously, I had to pour out a little bit of milk on my last pour because I knew it was going to be too much milk, and I knew I wouldn't get into that foam in time. So paying attention to how much you're actually pouring into your pitcher ahead of time will help you a lot.
I'm glad you brought that up because when I was training a lot of baristas, that was always one of the biggest pitfalls, was people using too much milk when they dose out their milk in their pitcher. Because exactly what you said, you're going to get to the top of your cup, but all your foam, all the good stuff, is still left in the pitcher. So how much you use is really important. The foam comes out, or the art, I should say, comes out last. So you don't want to get to the top of your cup before that happens.
Yeah,
So.
and then if you're foaming up too much, and let's say you even milk transfer, you might not even be pouring that much foam out unless you over frothed your milk.
Right.
And then it's too thick to really lay on nicely.
Well,
so.
shall we?
All right, let's do it.
All right.
We'll go ahead and switch
Good switch.
as I poured water all over the place. So. All right.
All right, you choose my cup too, sir.
I'm going to give you a nice little not neutral. So this one's going to be great for what you're doing a Rosetta.
I believe so.
Yes, we're doing a Rosetta.
I know one of the rules is plan ahead, know what I want to do. Sometimes I
Exactly.
don't know what I want to do
So
until I'm in that moment. I got to stop doing that. I
yeah,
got to plan
you-
ahead.
Yeah, you really got to plan ahead. And according to this cup, I feel like you might have a really nice Rosetta too. So nice depth to it. I feel like you'll be able to fill up to 3/4 pretty well.
All right. Well, here we go.
We'll see what happens. All right. I'm cameraman now.
You're cameraman now.
All right.
Who gave this man a camera?
Who knows? All right.
Now-
John's doing great over there.
My fear,
Nice
though,
whirlpool.
is that I did not add enough foam in the beginning of my steaming. And I don't want to do that near the end when it's too late, because then I'm not going to have enough time to whip those bubbles into the entire milk mixture. But we're going to find out what happens, Zach. Ready?
John, you're already winning on camera stability, so you're winning in my heart.
I appreciate that. All right, let's get my position right. I got my body language down. Not body language, body position. There we go. I stirred my crema really, really nice as well.
Look at that integration. Oh. Oh, wow. Look at that. There's even a wrap to it. I think John just beat me at our own little
I don't know.
unannounced latte art
I don't know about
competition.
that, man, because I mean, look at this. I really enjoy rosettas that have a little bit of a thicker leaf pattern here. And this is very, very thin, and I'm almost concerned that the reason is because I did not incorporate enough air in the beginning. I can also tell my symmetry, I'm going way too deep now, but I can also tell my symmetry is just a little bit off. You see how there's a bunch of milk that floated on the top over here, and a bunch of milk that got sunk over here.
And that's because you started kind of wiggling as it came out. You didn't push off for a nice base line, like this is a nice big old base that will then incorporate and build up a lot of this Rosetta.
Now, trust me, I mean, I would serve that to a customer if I was in a
Oh, man.
cafe. It'd
John,
be just fine, but you know.
There's absolutely no way that I would serve that. Horrible. No,
I
it looked
know.
awful. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get to some questions. Looks like we have a couple there. So
Yeah.
how many holes for steam nozzle is best? I've tried 4-hole nozzle for my Synchronica, but it creates too much turbulence. All right, so this is a great one that I usually touch on our last seminar, where you really want to focus on where your actual steam nozzle is dependent on how many holes that you have. So I can actually experiment with this right now,
Ooh, nice.
utilizing
Here.
our clear pitcher. All right,
I don't know if I've seen you do this. I'm excited about this.
all right. We're gonna teach everyone right now.
Cool. Now, we have 2 holes in this steam wand, right?
We do have 2 holes, so
Okay.
that will give me a specific position that I like for my best pressure to create that nice vortex. So as I position this, I'm always going to follow my actual wand with my tip of my spout, and I'm gonna aim for the center of my pitcher and about halfway in. With 2 holes, I'm gonna crank it just a little bit to the side. This 2-hole pressure will kind of create enough vortex on its own to create a really nice one right about there, probably about halfway into this 2nd and 4th quadrant.
Now,
Now-
is that because there's fewer holes, so you're getting a little more pressure that way, or is that not a thing?
You do get a little bit more pressure in a certain direction. So
Okay.
if I decrease the amount of holes to 1 hole, then I actually want to create even more of a deep end and tilt my pitcher even more into that 2nd and 4th quadrant.
Okay.
Now, if I have 4 holes, now that already kind of creates a vortex on its own. So I actually come all the way to the center and keep it about halfway.
Wow.
And that keeps that vortex going.
Cool.
So
Now, I'm sure however many holes you have, you can just play around and see what direction it wants to go in naturally and just adjust from there and just kind of adjust to what your milk is telling you when it's moving around.
exactly. So it's possible with however many holes that you have on your steam wand, you just have to look at how much of a tilt that you're giving it and where you're directing that pressure. Because a 1 hole will be pressure directly down. 4 holes is going to be pressure in 4 different ways. That actually creates a little bit of a whirlpool on its own.
Cool.
And I'm looking a little crazy here. But
well, you are. It's fine.
yes, turbulence will also be created depending on where that's going. So if you do tilt too much, then your turbulence is going to be going right to the side of your pitcher, and that's an awful noise. It will tell you as you're steaming if you're doing it wrong.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So how long does it take to get silky milk? Good question.
Yeah, so a lot of this actually starts with your beginning temperature. So you can only build up foam and start incorporating a lot of that air until about 98 degrees. So at 98 degrees, it doesn't quite create a microfoam anymore. It just throws a whole bunch of air into these large bubbles that won't actually cling on with these surfactants. So at 98 degrees, you have to stop, focus on that whirlpool until it's about too hot to touch. And most of microfoam will be stable within 122 and 140 degrees. So your extra hot lattes, it won't quite do with latte art. And your cold milk, yeah, you won't be able to do that either.
Yep. Now, if you don't have a thermometer at home, it's okay. Just when it gets warm, that's when you want to just focus on the whirlpool and stop incorporating air.
Yep.
And then when it gets to be about too hot to touch, that's pretty much when you know you're done. So those are kind of your two sensations that you're looking for in terms of temperature and what to do when. So,
Yep.
so you can do this without a thermometer as well. It's going to
Yep.
be okay.
So highly suggest that though. Maybe
Still,
grabbing a thermometer.
I still do for training purposes, absolutely. And then you just kind of get used to it over time and you take it from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nice.
So with that, let's get into a few of our tips and tricks.
Nice.
You know, John and I have been in the industry for a long time. We've frothed quite a lot of milks. I think I calculated how many millions of drinks that I've made, and it's actually incredible. So, not to brag or anything, but practice pouring with water is going to be one of those huge ones. And if you are struggling with building up microfoam, go ahead and use a dab of soap, and that will actually help you build up that foam, and it will also tell you when you're doing things wrong. Because when you do wrong with a dab of soap, it'll explode in your face, really. So, but it builds up the same way because it utilizes the same kind of surfactant. So it looks exactly like steaming milk. So if that's where you're starting to struggle, is your foaming ability, you know, you don't need too much air to pour latte art. And I recommend not going as thick as cappuccino as well. So start there, focus on that microfoam, and then you'll have better results by working on your posture.
Absolutely. It's
Zen.
something I need help with.
Yeah.
I do this next one, the weighing your milk to ensure you're getting the exact right amount to fill your cup. Here's another trick I had here that has to do with weighing the milk. If you're using this cup, for example, fill it up to just about the point where you're not going to spill it if you walk away with it, and then pour that into, or tear this on a scale and fill it up, and then see how much that weighs. And for me, that's always been a great jumping off point for how much milk do I need. Because you're gonna know that you're gonna have espresso in there and your milk is gonna expand a little bit too. So you've got a little extra space to account for those kinds of things. And that'll be, if you disagree, you can tell me. That's a little trick that I've always used, and I weigh that amount.
Yeah.
And then I just do that every time.
Definitely. And that'll greatly improve your latte art over time because you can kind of pour freely as well if you're kind of ending at the same time with just enough milk to kind of like either finish off or draw. Now, there's two different kinds of finishes with that too. If you need enough milk inside your pitcher to cross off, then you need a little bit more milk as well. And if you're like me and you're doing a lot of the drawing art, which maybe I'll still show that, you need a little bit less because you're finishing off with kind of just building up a little bit of foam.
Right.
So not enough milk to really strike off anything.
There you go.
So talking about contrast too. So we talk, you know, use some not rosettas. Use some ristrettos in order to create that nice darkened contrast in the background when you're creating that canvas. Now, another way to do this, if you're wanting to use your double shot, maybe throw in some chocolate inside there. Make a mocha, and that creates a great viscosity to build that foam on top of. The foam really sits on top of it, and you can really create nice, clean lines with it. It's beautiful. Some of the most gorgeous latte art that you'll see online on all these videos, you'll see a little bit of chocolate in there.
A lot of them are mochas.
A lot of them are mochas.
I remember back in the day when a customer would order a mocha, I'd be like, oh yes, let's go.
Yep.
I'm gonna get a really nice pour in this one.
That's the time to play. Also with matcha as well, it creates a great viscosity for that.
Oh, right. Yep.
So with about 5 minutes to go, maybe I'll go ahead and redeem myself for, if not all of you, for myself.
Well,
so
why don't I get you a shot going and we'll party?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Nice.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create myself as much room as possible. So I'm picking one of these larger, not neutral cups today.
Nice.
And then I'm going to go ahead and try to redeem myself with the same sort of pitcher I used previously. I'm going to wash it out a little bit.
Now, which pitcher is that again?
So this is going to be the smaller nasty jug pitcher. It has a really fine tip to it, so it's great for this drawing art. As you can see, I get really close to it, enough to dip that tip inside there too. All right. All right.
Now, do you know it in advance what you're about to pour?
Let's see. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
You're not going to tell me, are you?
Nope.
Great. Thanks.
I'm just trying to win. You can't tell. Can't tell your competitors what you're going to pour if you're trying to win.
Never let them know your next move, Zach.
Yeah. Unless you're trying to throw it. I've done that before too. It's like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to pour a Rosetta. And then they pour something better than that. All right. So I'm actually going to switch it up. I'm going to pour on the classic, actually.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Let's go ahead and do this. Set this up.
I would love if shots going. That's we have a lot of users that do have the Gaja Classic, so I think that'll really just kind of help show everyone, like, hey, you can do it too.
Yeah.
Yep.
But all those users should also ignore the mess that I just made as well. So.
Coffee is a messy business. It's
Coffee
okay, man.
is a messy business.
It's all right. There we go.
All right. So I have, let's see, less pressure, less holes. So I'm going to go a pretty angled pour on this one.
Okay. How's your whirlpool looking over there?
It's looking okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's getting by. Now, it can be pretty difficult with this because it is a little bit of a larger pitcher, so it's going to take some time.
Sure.
But I think it's going to be possible. John, do you think it's going to be possible?
I think it's going to be possible. I'm actually watching your whirlpool right now. You're actually doing just fine. I'm keeping your espresso alive over here, making sure that.
Oh man, John, you're an amazing human being.
Oh please, yeah. You know that can be important if your espresso sits around for a little while. You do want to give it a swirl. The crema is really just made up of bubbles. It's just CO2. Those can kind of come together and sort of form like impenetrable crema islands. So then when you're trying to pour a design through it, those can kind of harden over a certain amount of time, and you're not going to be able to pour through those islands.
Well, thank you for distilling my islands.
Of course.
All right, so let's see how this goes.
All right.
Redemption time, maybe?
Redemption time. Two. Wow. Look at these little dots you're doing here.
You know what, the milk texture wasn't the best. I blame that on my skill. But, you know.
It's okay. You know, those Gaja Classic machines are great. They have a little lower pressure, but you can still do it.
Yeah, we could still do it. We could still get there.
In fact, this was a pretty complicated pour. This is a seahorse.
Yeah, this is a seahorse, so it is decently complicated, but still possible with some practice on a Gaja Classic. So
Absolutely.
I hope that kind of proves that today. But thank you so much for joining us today. It is the end of our time, but feel free to go check out the rest of our schedule on our website for more seminars to come. It's about every day at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So this time tomorrow, did you want to finish that one up?
Sure. This time tomorrow, keep your machine brewing better longer.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, I didn't remember that one anyways, so. My name is Zach.
I'm John.
Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, see y'all next time.